Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to RBKC's Licensing Subcommittee, and thank you all for attending. I am Councillor Marie-Therese Rossi, and I will be chairing this meeting. The committee for this hearing comprises Councillor Lucy Knight and Councillor Claire Simmons. Can I ask if we have gone live yet? Yes, we have. Okay, thank you. We are joined by Paul Phelan from the Council's licensing team. Our legal officer is Lindsay Le Mesurier. Also with us is our committee officer, Gareth Ebenezer, and he is supported by Jerome Trahan. Before we start the hearing for this case, there are a few ground rules. Please keep your microphones on mute until you are invited to speak, and please make sure mobile phones are on silent. Thank you. The case before us today is to grant a licence for R&H Kensington Limited, 84 Abingdon Villas, London, West 8, 6XB. I declare that I have no declaration of interest to make regarding this item. Do other members of the panel have any declarations? Councillor Knight? Councillor Simmons? No. Thank you, colleagues. We have one piece of late evidence.
Thank you, Chair. We received one letter from Edward Bibco this morning. I don't know if Mr Bibco is here today. I don't think he is. The committee haven't seen it yet because it's obviously late evidence, and the committee need to grant permission to accept this letter. So if the committee are minded to grant permission, then we can take a 5-minute adjournment for all the parties just to have a quick read. Does anybody have any objection?
No? So we can read that.
So governance could hand this round to everybody, please.
Thank you. For clarity, I will outline the procedure of the meeting, which, as I already mentioned, has been circulated with the papers. First, the licensing officer, Mr. Phelan, will give a brief outline of the application. Please could you confirm your attendance?
Good morning, Chair. Paul Phelan, licensing, present.
Then I will ask the applicant, Ms. Zara Fardi, to present a submission. You will have up to a maximum of 10 minutes to do so. Then questions will be asked by members of the committee of the applicant. Then questions may be asked by the objectors of the applicant. Next, the objectors, Ms. Catherine Greenwood, Ms. Suzanne Biko, Mr. Jeremy Woodcraft, on behalf of his client, Jennifer Ratner, and Councillor Sarah Addenbrook will present their objections. They will have up to a maximum of 10 minutes each to do so. Please could you all confirm your attendance? Thank you.
Do you want us all to?
Well, so we can work out who's who,
Okay.
Sarah. So,
Catherine Greenwood.
Catherine Greenwood,
Jeremy Woodcraft.
Jennifer Ratner.
thank you. Then questions will be asked by members of the committee to the objectors. Then questions may be asked by the applicant to the objectors. After this, we will ask our legal officer, Ms. Le Mesurier, to deal with any questions she may have, for example, regarding conditions. Can you confirm your attendance?
I'm here, Chair, thank you.
Then finally return to governance, to the governance team to see if any issues have been raised that we will need to consider. There will be no summing up and the meeting will end. I would like to remind everyone that the committee has read the papers which comprise the main pack and the additional submissions that have been circulated to the party. So there is no need to repeat their content, but please do draw our attention to certain points and pages. Okay, let's start the proceedings. Mr. Phelan, could you outline the case for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. Today's application has been submitted by R&H Kensington Limited for the grant of a premises licence at 84 Abingdon Villas, London, W86XB. The application is for a grant of a new premises licence for a cafe/restaurant comprising of a single-storey unit situated on the southerly side of Abingdon Villas. The plans submitted with the application indicate 12 covers inside the premises, with a further 6 covers on the forecourt. The application before you today originally sought alcohol sales on the premises from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. Monday to Sunday. However, Chair, additional documents were circulated on the 3rd of March 2023, amending the application by reducing the hours sought for alcohol sales on the premises to 6 p.m. Monday to Sunday, and to include the provision for 52 non-standard timings per year in which the applicant could extend on sales of alcohol up until 22:30 with a 30-minute drinking up period. The applicant has outlined additional conditions as part of this amendment as well. I can confirm that this application did attract a representation from Mr. Keith Mahaffey, an area senior officer within the Council's Noise and Nuisance team. A copy of Mr. Mahaffey's original objection has been included at Appendix C of the main report. Mr. Mahaffey has also provided further comments following the amendments made to this application. A copy of Mr. Mahaffey's additional comments was circulated to relevant parties on the 6th of March 2023. The Planning Department has not made a formal representation in connection with this application, but as an informative for the subcommittee, the Planning Department has confirmed that the premises currently has permitted use as a soft furnishing shop in the larger unit and a beauty salon in the smaller unit, and that the hours are restricted Monday to Saturday between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. The planning officer also confirmed that permission for the proposed use as a cafe and hours sought would be required. A copy of the planning officer's comments and pre-application report are attached to Appendix E. This application received a further 24 representations opposing the application. This includes objections from Councillor Sarah Addenbrook, Councillor Anne Croyne and Councillor James Husband, and the ESSA Residents Associations. Copies of these representations are attached to Appendix D. At the time this report was written, no noise complaints or temporary event notices had been received in the preceding 12 months. That concludes a summary of this application. I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. So I will then ask the applicant, Ms. Zara Fathi, sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly, to present your submission. You will have up to 10 minutes to do so.
Good morning, and thank you very much for convening this meeting in person. I'm happy to be here today to present my application for alcohol license for R&H, a business that has been operating in Richmond since 2016. R&H is more than just a place to grab a quick bite to eat. It's a community hub that offers nutritious food, handmade crafts, and variety of culinary classes and workshops. Today, I hope to demonstrate how the addition of alcohol to our menu will enhance the overall customer experience and help us continue to grow and thrive as a value member of this neighborhood. R&H has received overwhelming positive feedback on both Facebook and Instagram, with numerous customers praising our high-quality food and a welcoming atmosphere. Some of the key themes that emerge from these reviews include the exceptional customer service, the variety and quality of my food offering, and the sense of community that R&H fosters. Unfortunately, my TripAdvisor account was lost after the closure of my Richmond shop in 2021. R&H was ranked #1 in Richmond prior to the closure, and I'm happy to provide additional information or context about our success on that platform. In addition to our core offering of food and handmade crafts, R&H has built a strong sense of community through our charitable partnership and B2B businesses. We are proud to have worked with several local organizations to raise funds and awareness for important cause, and to have established partnership with other businesses in the area to support mutual growth and success. These partnerships have allowed us to extend our impact beyond our immediate customer base and build meaningful connection with other members of the neighborhood. R&H has been operating from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., offering homemade food, cake, jam, sweet, and handmade crafts. While the prime focus on the business has always been food and art, alcohol was always complement to the food. In response to customer demand, we also introduced ticketed supper clubs, which were held from 7 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. and offer a unique social experience for strangers to share food and drinks in a welcoming and inclusive atmosphere. Our intention in seeking an alcohol license is to continue to provide alcohol to complement our food, as well as to facilitate these occasional supper club events, which have been well received by our customers. I understand that we have received 25 comments or objections regarding our premises alcohol license application. While some may view this level of objection as a sign that the neighborhood is not welcoming, I see it as a positive indication that the community cares deeply about its surrounding. In hindsight, I should have provided some context to my neighbors ahead of this application to reassure them of my intention, and for that I apologize. After listening to the community's feedback and consulting with the noise and nuisance officer, I have made revision to my application. It will now cover the hour of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, with the additional 52 occasions for non-standard timing to cover supper club events from 7 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. These non-standard timing will motivate me to put operation control in place to minimize the business's impact on my neighbor. These supper club events will have maximum capacity of 20 persons taking a full table meal to showcase my menu, creating an intimate atmosphere like a dinner party. Customers will arrive at the beginning of the evening and stay until the end, and the door and window will remain closed. If any customer wish to step outside to smoke, it will be very sporadic and should not create any unnecessary disturbance due to the low number of customers. Background music will be playing to create a relaxed atmosphere that encourages conversation between customers. The premises is small, and I will have a full view of the exterior through the large window, allowing me to manage the exterior of the premises. I will also develop external management process to encourage customers to leave the premises quietly. I'm confident that RNH will earn the local community trust and confidence, just as we did in Richmond. I would like to emphasize that RNH has always been a reputable trader in the hospitality business. I have received a 5-star hygiene ranking and have never had any complaint lodged against my trade in Richmond. Additionally, I have always paid my business rate and taxes and have left my premises in excellent condition. I have a clear track record of operating my license in a lawful manner, and we are committed to upholding these standards in this location. In conclusion, I would like to express my gratitude for your time, help, and support throughout this process. I understand that there have been concern and objection raised regarding our alcohol license application, but I'm confident that that with my amendment hours and are committed to being responsible and reputable business, I will earn the trust and confidence of the local community. I am happy to address any further question to concern that you may have. Thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you very much. So I now go to the committee. Have you any questions? Councillor Knight, and then I go to Councillor Simmons.
Thank you very much for that. I'm just going to start with a couple of things I noted, but one being the preparation of food and the extraction fan that you plan to place in your restaurant, just to ensure this is obviously something that's come up to residents in terms of the smell that could come out on the street.
Yeah, I should address that the level of cooking that we do in the premises it doesn't have the aroma that bother neighbors. But this is what we talking with the planning at the moment, and whatever they decide would be my decision as well.
Thank you. And then in terms of a delivery service to food, because that's another aspect of the objections that came up in having bikes, maybe picking up food. Do you plan to have a delivery service as part of your offering?
Like delivering our food to people? We didn't do this in Richmond. It's more people coming to our cafe to enjoy it rather than deliver it.
Thank you. Just checking this out. And then in regards to music, one of the objectors brought up that the previous tenant they'd heard the radio playing. Just wondering if you have any plans. I know you say it's going to be background music, but just how we can ensure to residents that the noise in terms of music won't be causing any problems in the evening.
Sure, it would be, like, as I said, it would be a background music, but I know that one wall, a part of my wall would be shared with a neighbor, and I have a plan to acoustic that wall to make sure that they are not bothering with that music.
Thank you, that's, yeah.
So you intend to soundproof that?
Yeah, that's a small part which is with a neighbor, yes.
Okay. If I could ask just a couple of questions. Could you describe the type of food that you are going to provide? Will it be substantial meals, etc.?
It's a Persian cuisine, and we offer breakfast, brunch, and lunch. I'm not sure if you tried before. It doesn't have a very, it doesn't have aroma, the kind of aroma to bother neighbors.
Have you actually applied now for planning permission for the change of use and also for the slight extension that you want to do at the top?
The location has two parts. One part doesn't need to apply for any planning permission because it has an E-use class. The other part, which is a smaller part and it's closer to my neighbor, that has two restrictions that we put with the planning permission, put application for that, to revert it back to E-class use. I mean, it's an A1 use now, which is considered as an E-class use, but we want to revert it so the whole unit would be E-class use.
Okay, and finally, when you intend to have your supper club, which could be up to 52 times a year, and a maximum of 20 people inside with the windows and doors closed, etc., when people come to leave at about 10:30, how are you going to control them so they're not going to make a noise to disturb the neighbours?
We will ask them, and I will put sign that please leave these premises quietly, and we ask people to leave quietly.
Okay, thank you. So I will turn now to the objectors to see if... Okay, Lindsay, you go first.
Sorry, just one quick question. I think Mr. Phelan, in his introduction, said there were 12 covers inside and 6 covers outside. Is that correct? That makes 18.
Sorry, that's correct, Chair. That is how I introduced the application.
Okay. Can you fit 20 people inside? Because I notice your supper clubs are just inside the premises. Can you fit 20 covers inside?
It would be inside, and the maximum that we did in my Richmond place was 17 people, because people sit next to each other. It might be less than 20 people, between 15 to 20 people.
But just to be clear, no one's going to be outside, it is just going to be inside.
No, for
the
supper clubs, because I prepare that PowerPoint that you have in front of you with the print. People sit around one table, so it's not that they come and serve as they come. They need to arrive together and we serve food for them, so it would be one table meal.
If Councillor Simmons has a question, then I'll turn to the objectors.
Thank you. Just one, actually. In terms of the sale of alcohol at 9 a.m, how many customers do you envisage that would be applying to? Are you anticipating that there would be a lot of sales at that hour of the day?
9 a.m. in the morning? No, I don't think that. Sometimes back in Richmond, we have some people want to have champagne with their breakfast. It was a celebration or occasion, but no, we didn't have. I'm happy if you want to make it at 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
So I now turn to the objectors. If you would like to ask questions of the applicant, thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions, if I may. One practical question that I would ask the applicant, if they have any rear area or outside area to the rear of the premises?
Have access to the rear, no.
There are conditions that have been discussed relating to rubbish and bottles and bottling out and things of that nature and deliveries, etc. How are you going to deal with rubbish and empty bottles and things? Where are you going to store them if you don't have an outside area, as they can't sit on the pavement according to the conditions?
I can arrange with the people that collect the rubbish that comes in exact time, and we put it at that time outside so they come and collect it, and they won't remain outside for a long time.
But presumably this is only going to be once a week. Where are you going to store it pending getting them to come round?
I believe that they have to collect the rubbish before 11, and we are leaving at 10:30, so that would be a sufficient time for them to collect it between 10:30 to 11.
So are you suggesting that you'd have a rubbish collection every day?
We used to have it in Richmond every day they collect it.
And just when you say, just one point on that, is that 10:30 at night or 10:30 in the morning that you're talking about?
We have supper club. We can make sure that they 10:30 in the evening they come and collect the rubbish.
But on a normal day, when would they come and collect the rubbish?
I think it would be between 6 to 8 p.m. I can arrange that.
Just moving on, there's reference in there and a question was asked about the planning application. You've explained about the use class, and also I think there's reference in the committee bundle to the structure, but there doesn't seem to be any reference to the current restriction on the hours use for the premises, which is highlighted at page 49 of the bundle, that the use shall not be between other than between 10 and 6. Have you made any progress as far as the hours restriction is concerned with the planning?
The hours that you're mentioning is regarding the part of the premises. It's not regarding to the other side. So the other side with a large window doesn't have any restriction.
So, can we just be clear in terms of the plan that you've deposited? Does that cover both parts of the premises?
So I put the planning permission for the smaller side to revert back to the usage that it has before, and I assume the hours would be the same as the bigger side of the unit.
So, in essence, you've talked about an application to change use class in respect of the smaller part of the premises, but you haven't discussed the planning restriction in relation to the hours that applies to that currently.
So when they change the use, the hours would apply to it. This is with the planning application. This is a decision. I think we have to wait for a decision.
Can I just interject here that on page 49 it does actually say that there is no objection from planning, but that planning permission is required to permit the hours of operation and use intended by the applicant. So the important thing is we've applied, it has been applied for. We can't second guess what planning is going to say, but it has actually been applied for. Okay.
And the only final question I had was in relation to the outside area, the chairs and tables on the public highway. Have you made any progress with your application for a highways permit yet?
That's again, it's with a planning permission, planning application. I'm waiting on that.
Thank you. Those are the questions I have.
Do any other of the objectors wish to ask questions? No.
Sorry, Chair. If I could just ask a couple of questions. I think the concern is over the actual offer because it keeps changing. So I think it would be really good for everybody here to hear what your actual offer is. Originally it was a cafe, then the hours have changed, the offer has changed. So I think that we just all need to be really clear on what your offer is.
As I mentioned, the offer that we are doing now would be with the amendment. Whatever amendment timing we put, we're gonna produce that hours. We're going to be there from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then occasionally we put a notice and have those events in the evening.
Thank you. And I know when we met, you talked about surprising your neighbours, which is part of the problem. So I think it would have been really helpful. You talk about a cafe, but you're talking about substantial food, it would have been really helpful to have a menu, some idea of the food you're going to offer. And I think we all feel that a 9 o'clock licence for alcohol is not acceptable. This is a very residential street. It's very quiet. And I think 9 o'clock is just too early. So you don't have to answer now, but I think you should consider putting that back later.
If you want to see the menu is available on our website, and all the photos and everything is available on the website.
I think it would be more helpful if it was here. We don't have access to the website.
So before this meeting, I sent an email I explain about my business, and I put my website, Instagram pages, Facebook pages. I put everything in a letter, and we send it out before this meeting.
I'm sorry, I don't think we can rely on Facebook. I really think a menu would have been really helpful so that we can just understand what the offer is.
But I put everything on that email, and I put some photos on there. You can see the photo of the supper club. It's not menu, but you can see the photos of the food.
It would be helpful if you could just describe the menu, just some of the basic things that you would provide on a regular basis for those of us who don't really know what Persian food is like.
So our breakfast brunch menu is mainly with eggs, so different types of eggs we offer. And on supper club night, it would be homemade cooking, some rice and a stew.
Sorry, Chair,
Could I add something? I don't know if you have this document, this one, but it does say in terms of business offerings, homemade food, cakes, homemade jams and sweets, handmade crafts, addition of supper clubs based on customer demand can be considered semi-fine dining. So I think that gives an indication of the character of the offer, if that's helpful.
I think it is sort of helpful, but I think because we talked about a cafe and then it morphed into supper clubs, it would have been just good to see what the actual offer is, particularly as alcohol is going to be served with substantial meals from 9 o'clock in the morning. So that's I think, where we are. The other issue is on the number of tables and chairs. The map or the plan shows, I think it's 12, and you're talking about 20 inside. Even if you push the tables up with the entrance into the cafe, I think you could probably only seat 16 unless you have 2 people further down, which you've got on the plan. So I'm struggling with the numbers there. And also just people coming out and smoking. We all know that when people go out and smoke, they chat. The smell, if you don't smoke, is appalling. And it's a real issue. So I do have concerns about how you're going to manage that.
So we're going to minimize the timing that is spent outside by asking them not to take their drinks outside. That makes it quicker, they come back in. And we're going to put sign that we're going to provide ashtray and everything so they won't put rubbish.
I think my point is that there's nowhere outside of the cafe which is suitable for smoking. Because you have residents to the side, to the other side, and opposite.
We operate this supper clubs in Richmond in a neighborhood area, the same as here. We never had the problem with neighbors regarding smoking, and I can assure that we rarely have people going out to smoke because they wanted to spend time inside and talk to each other and enjoy their meal.
And could you respond on the number of tables and chairs inside?
As I mentioned, 20 would be the maximum. So we are talking between 15 to 20. I put 20 because I think that would be the maximum. It's not going to be more than that.
So looking at the plan, if you've got the plan in front of you, if you fill in the gaps between the tables and chairs and then add one on the end, you only get to 16. And then you've got the entrance and the fire exit. So I can't see how you can seat 20.
Just don't understand the question now. Is it the problem between 16 and 20 people? I just don't know.
Can I ask, if, have you measured the tables? How big are the ones going to be outside? Because it's a very narrow pavement.
That is with the, we put the application for that. We may end up not having it outside. And if we have, it would be very small chairs and tables, just one row.
Okay, there simply isn't space to have people sitting and allowing enough space for someone to walk past them because of the bike rack that's right there, which sticks onto the pavement as well.
As I said, that's
Is that the extra seats that Sarah was talking about? Is that what makes it 20?
Could I just say, I think as far as the plan inside, that the 20, whether it's 16, 18 or 20, I think the idea is that you push the tables together and therefore you can get more people. Whether you can get 20, that remains to be seen. But I think, Lindsay, you might have something to say about the highways. I don't think this is something that we can determine here today, but Lindsay's going to say something about the tables and chairs outside.
Thank you. As Councillor Rossi has just mentioned, obviously it's for the Director of Transportation and Highways to deal with any pavement licence or Section 115E applications, so it's not within our remit today. I think you said you've applied and you're awaiting the outcome. Whether you get tables and chairs or not, I don't know. You'll have to fulfil their criteria. But obviously the committee have to work on the basis that you might get tables and chairs. And obviously, I think we can discuss it when we come to the conditions section, but I think we've restricted tables and chairs in condition 11 to just the cafe hours. And if you do get tables and chairs, they'd have to be brought inside. So I think that's where we're at with the tables and chairs. We can't really go any further with that.
Just thank you for clarifying that. I just want to check, have you actually applied for tables and chairs? Because there's no notice up.
That is the application that we put it. It's not authorized yet, so you can't say it now. You have to wait for that.
When I liaised with transportation yesterday or the day before, they haven't received an application as yet, so it sounds as though one needs to be made. That's my understanding.
We are amending the application to put it. That's why we haven't.
So I now turn to the objectors to put forward their case. Who would like to speak first? Is it Mr. Woodcraft or Ms. Greenwood?
I'd volunteered to go first, Madam, if that's okay.
You have up to 10 minutes.
Yes,
each.
I'll keep my eye on the clock and make sure that I stick to the 10 minutes. Committee, I represent Ms Ratner, who sits next to me. Ms Ratner lives in the premises that is actually adjoining this premises, actually built onto the side, and therefore she is going to be most impacted by the nuisance that this application and premises is going to create. Our representations to you today are that this is fundamentally not a suitable premises for the use proposed that will be facilitated by the grant of this licence. And accordingly, we are asking you in the strongest terms to refuse the application. The Council obviously will have regard to its own licensing policy when it comes to determine this application, and extracted in the committee bundle, Appendix G is local area risk assessments, and clearly in this case, had the applicant conducted a local area risk assessment, they would have identified the fact that this is a very heavily residential area, residents on all sides, and also that dispersal policies, particularly around smoking, which has already been mentioned, would be an issue. And certainly the policy, your policy, would expect the applicant to put forward in their operating schedule positive steps to address those particular concerns. And I would, with the greatest respect, suggest that that hasn't really been done. And there have been a lot of conditions subsequently discussed with various officers, but at the outset there has been very little consideration given to the council policy and how that would work. Moving on, paragraph 14.5 of your policy states that where your discretion is triggered, as it has been here, because you have any number of objections from pretty much the whole street, you will not grant an application unless you can be satisfied it will not create an unreasonable disturbance. And again, coming back to very much the location and the structure and the size of this premises, we would say it is going to create an unreasonable disturbance. The environmental health officer has been heavily involved, which, as your expert in these things, clearly he has identified that this premises has the potential to create noise nuisance and impact significantly on that licensing objective. And his latest update, where he sent a note apologising for being unable to be here today, he identifies areas where he still has outstanding concerns, particularly around cooking smells and particularly around the outside area. 14.6 of your policy goes on to say that where you are concerned that conditions are not enough, then you should give consideration to refusing the application. And here, your expert has identified that there is a real significant likelihood of impact by a dint of the various and many conditions he put forward, but still his latest update is that there are still outstanding points and concerns. I think there are other outstanding issues with this application that, again, I think make it very difficult for you to consider granting with any great confidence today. There is been reference to the planning regime, and that is entirely two separate regimes, licensing and planning, but it would certainly appear that there is this restriction on hours, which is at page 49 of your bundle. And whilst there is extracted again into your bundle the advice given by a different planning officer, he talks about the structure, he talks also about the use class, but is silent as far as the hours are concerned. So whilst these are two entirely separate regimes, potentially as we stand here today, granting this premises licence would create a direct conflict with one of your other regulatory functions. The other aspect, again, which has been touched upon today, and the legal officer is quite right that it clearly is with the Highways Department at the moment, or will be shortly when an application is made, but you have sufficient information in your bundle to be able to take an assessment on the likelihood of a pavement licence being granted. You will see that in the advisory note from the planning officer, he presumably not having had sight of the premises, he states in clear terms that there must be 2 clear metres of pavement aside from any highways furniture or permit that is granted. You have a picture in your bundle of the frontage of this premises at page 23, and I think it is a matter of common sense that you can see that that pavement is not significantly wider than 2 metres, if at all. So, again, whilst it is entirely a matter for the Highways Department, you have information and evidence before you that means that it is extremely unlikely that any kind of outside area is going to be granted, which again, with granting an application today, creates a conflict with another regulatory function of the council. There is just one small legal point which I would make, that you can grant a premises licence over anything. You do not need the applicant to show any interest in premises. So here, if you granted this, the premises licence would create a premises licence over effectively what is the public footpath, with no prospect of any right to use the same. So I would ask you to consider those. I think really the important point that my client particularly would ask you to take into account, there's a lot of talk about later hours and supper clubs and activity after 6 o'clock. But my client would say very much that this is going to create a noise nuisance and an intrusion into their lives every day. They have experience of the shop as it has been, which I think was an upholsterer's type shop, and he played a radio that was clearly audible in the premises, and indeed there is another objector who works from home and references the fact that they too could hear the radio being played. I think this is in part undoubtedly attributable to the structure of the shop. It seems to be an infill type premises and not of the same kind of construction and sufficiently attenuated to keep any noise in. So irrespective of music or otherwise, you are still going to have 20, 12, somewhere, any number of people in there on a regular basis, chatting, talking, laughing. That noise is going to be a day-on-day intrusion into my client's premises and the quiet enjoyment of their home. The smoking aspect is very important. It is, I think, statistically, the last figures were that 1 in 10 or 1 in 11 people smoke. So inevitably there are going to be smokers, and there is nowhere for them to go. They will have to stand on the public highway or on the public pavement. That is going to cause an obstruction. That is going to be a matter of feet from my client's premises, from my client's window. And obviously conversation outside of a building is even more intrusive at whatever time of day than conversation within. There also are conditions again around bottling out, rubbish, etc., etc. You have heard there that the suggestion would be that there would be a rubbish collection at 10:30 in the evening when the supper clubs take place. Clearly at that time of night, bin lorries coming down and emptying bottles, etc., is going to be extremely intrusive. 2 minor points and then I will sum up. The committee will be aware of this, but every licence lasts forever unless surrendered or revoked. And so whilst this applicant tells you what her proposals are, if the premises is sold, the licence can be transferred and the licence will go with it, and anybody else can come in with a different idea and a different operation. Also, one recent deregulation, again, because of the Live Music Act, now if this premises licence is granted, they will be entitled, whether it be this applicant or somebody in the future, to have live and recorded music without further recourse to the committee, without the need for further grant. So again, a real concern from my client's side. So in summary, therefore, looking to the clock with 2 minutes to spare, this is an application where there are more questions than answers, and it will undoubtedly create an unreasonable noise nuisance and disturbance for my client and all of the other objectors that have put forward their case to you in writing but have been unable to attend today. There are some fundamental unanswered points around planning and highways, and granting this application today could put the premises licence very much in conflict with what may transpire from planning or indeed may transpire from highways. The location, the structure, as I said at the outset, it is possibly a very good proposal, but not in this location at this particular premises because, as I say, of its structure, of its lack of facilities, of its very confined nature. So I would say that it will undermine the licensing objectives, and I think demonstrated today, conditions are not possible that would enable you to grant. So we would ask you to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the other objectors wish to speak? Councillor Addenbrooke.
I was just going to say, I don't think I've got anything to add to that. I think that was very comprehensive. But another of the local residents, Mrs. Greenwood, would like to say something.
Yes, just speaking from a layman's perspective, it is a very heavily residential area in which we have already 3 pubs within 50 yards. two on the Earls Court Road and one on the junction with Abingdon Road. We also have a cafe on the corner of Abingdon Road, and 2 more on the Earls Court Road. And the residents, these have been in place for some time, and most of the residents, you move in, and if there is a pub when you buy your house, that is on you to accept that the pub was there first. However, there is, I think, a legitimate concern if these types of establishments are increasing in what is basically a residential area. And I think myself and my neighbours are very concerned about the noise and the rubbish which we put up with from the Abingdon. But as in somebody's email somewhere, the noise of the collection and the recycling into an empty lorry either very late at night or very early in the morning is like a bomb going off sometimes when they throw it in. It's incredibly loud enough to wake you up. So hence I would ask that you refuse this application on the basis of the neighbourhood. Thank you.
Thank you. We are, of course, I hear what you say, and yes, this is a residential area, as is most of the borough. We are compelled to look at each application on its own merits. And even though Abingdon Villas is a residential road, it's very close to the Earls Court Road, and it has the pub on the other corner. What we don't do when we're looking at applications, because currently we're not allowed to, is to look at the density of other establishments in the same area. We have to look at it, you know, in its on its own merits, and you know, we can talk about local area risk assessment, but it is actually, that premise is actually very close to the Earls Court Road, where there are a whole load of establishments. But I will pass over to my committee now, who they might have some questions.
Not actually any for me. Thanks.
Just one for Mr. Greenwood. Is it Greenwood? Sorry, Mr. Woodcraft, so sorry. With regard to the noise based upon the premises being adjacent and adjoining, do you feel in any way reassured by the prospect of there being attenuation when the works are done on the inside wall?
I think the planning application indicates that they're going to be installing roof lights that are going to come just under my client's bedroom windows, so any attenuation on the wall isn't going to have any great impact on that.
Thank you.
Any questions now from the applicant to the objectors? Do you have any questions to put to them?
I don't have a question. I just want to emphasize on that I buy this property, and my plan is long term, and it is my business. I operating it there myself. So I'm going to be in that neighborhood, and I want to minimize the disturbance with the neighbors, because they are going to be my first customers. That's the only thing that I want to add.
Do you have any questions to put to them? No. I would like our legal officer to deal with draft conditions.
Thank you, Chair. Has everybody received the draft conditions that were circulated by governance yesterday? Because that's what we're going to be discussing. Thank you. Right, okay, so I'm going to concentrate on the numbered ones with red writing. If anybody has any comments to make, can you just make yourself known so we can just discuss them? I'll just give everyone a chance. Okay. So looking on the first page at number 1, the applicant in their operating schedule referenced training. So I've slotted in, obviously these are in in the event that the committee is minded to grant, obviously, it's not tying the committee's hands. I've slotted in 4 conditions pertaining to training. Does anybody have any comments on them? Are they happy with them? Thank you. CCTV, obviously the applicant, can you obviously, if there's anything that you're not happy with, let me know as well. Is everybody happy with the proposed CCTV condition? Thank you. And then we'll go down to number 3, which is a challenge 25 policy. Is everybody happy with the challenge 25 policy condition? No comment, I'll take that as a yes. Right, now we're going to go to the conditions requested by noise and nuisance. They're all written in black. So the ones in black I haven't amended, and obviously I've tweaked some of them with red. Are we all happy with condition 4 about no smells?
Could we add in there and noise? Smells and noise. I'm just thinking about the extractor.
I think Mr Mahaffey would have added a condition pertaining to the extractor. About number 6, yeah. Yeah, no noise or vibration associated with the operation of plants.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4, that's okay then, no smells. Number 5, so all alcohol sales must be to seated customers and with waiter-waitress service. So that is going to apply during the cafe hours and during the supper events. Is everybody happy with that? I'll take that as a yes. And then there's number 6, no noise or vibration associated with plant, which is what Councillor Adamroot was referring to. Thank you. Number 7 is the drinking up, so that allows 30 minutes after end of alcohol sales to drink up and leave the premises. That's a standard condition. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you. Number 8, clearly legible signs asking patrons to leave the area quietly. Thank you. Number 9, rubbish, including bottles or cans, shall not be deposited outside between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. the following day.
Well, obviously the issue has arisen of, as pointed out, the noise, the tremendous noise of bottling out and rubbish being collected at 10:30 at night, which is a matter perhaps the committee could consider.
Thank you. Number 10, now, no alcohol or other drink shall be taken from the premises in an open container after 2200 hours. This was suggested by Mr Mahaffey. I mean, obviously, we can't stop smokers going outside, but can I just have everybody's views on this condition and the time, please?
People really need to be taking alcohol. Well, I suppose it depends, doesn't it? Because if the table license is granted, then that's a different thing. But I don't think there should be a provision for off sales.
There isn't off sales. I mean, I wonder if we could do it earlier rather than... So if the cafe, if they do get tables and chairs, and the cafe hours end at 6, Mr Mahaffey suggested 10 o'clock. Would you, between... What about, I mean, either 10 o'clock or between 6, I think you close between 6 and 7, don't you? The cafe closes at 6, and then if you're going to have an evening event, it starts at 7, doesn't it?
Well, then say 6.
So, sorry,
Can I just say that this is talking about alcohol in an open container?
Yes.
So presumably you wouldn't want open containers taken out at all at any point. I mean, I don't know, I can't recall if the application is asking for on and off sales, but off sales would never be open containers. They would be bottles or cans or whatever they may be.
The red line extends to the forecourt as it is, doesn't it? So if they have tables and chairs during the day, then they'll be able to drink, obviously, open containers outside during glasses during the day, yeah.
So there should just be no open containers, no alcohol in open containers leaves the premises in essence.
But you'd want open containers, sorry, until 6, if they get tables and chairs and they want to eat outside, sorry.
Yeah, but if they get tables and chairs, the plan currently encompasses that, so that is part of the premises.
As an on-sale, yes.
Yes. So anything beyond that, we don't want people stepping beyond the...
I understand, beyond the red line.
Yeah.
But we don't need off sales, I think.
No, they haven't applied for off sales though, have they? So that they couldn't.
But in any event, if you're doing off sales, they're not open containers. That's the point of this condition.
Beyond the red line you're talking about, yeah. Okay. But I'm talking within the red line. Are you happy with 10 o'clock?
Sorry, say that again?
So for within the red line area,
Yeah.
where drinks can be taken in open containers,
6, maybe
what
6.
time, are we happy with 10 o'clock? That's what I'm saying. Beyond, so Mr Mahathir's saying no alcohol should be taken from the premises, or I'm assuming that he means within that red line area. You're assuming he means beyond that red line area.
I think that's
sorry, I'm getting there. I'm talking about, I've read it that he means taking drinks outside onto that within the red line area.
Oh, fine.
What time would you think, if that is the perception?
I think the condition would probably need to be reworded if we're talking about consumption of alcohol on the premises in the external area. Then consumption, there should be a restriction earlier in terms of whenever the highways permit is limited to, effectively.
Just quickly, didn't Zara say that she didn't want people to be going outside in the evening with cigarettes and glasses? So surely if it was to end at 6 p.m. when the cafe hours end, that could work, because she doesn't want to be encouraging people. This is talking, if we're not talking about their outside chairs and table, for example, being accepted, people at the dinner party not going outside with their drinks is something she's already stated as she wouldn't encourage it.
Okay, so that's a very good point.
So I think 6 p.m. as a result when the cafe ends.
So I think we need to ask the applicant. So I think we're more so focusing on the supper evenings here rather than like during the cafe hours. Obviously we can't stop people going outside smoking, and I think you said you would try to stop people taking their drinks out with them.
So for supper clubs, we put this restriction that if someone wants to smoke, they can take their wine glasses outside with them.
They can?
They can.
They can't. Okay, so would you be okay with this number 10 condition saying that particularly no alcohol or other drink shall be taken after 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
Are you happy with that?
Yes.
And you understand? Okay.
Can I just, and I know you're going to tell me that this can't happen, but because this is subject to tables and chairs,
Yes.
and that area outside is included in the licence.
Yes.
If the request is all the tables and chairs not granted, where does that leave the licensable area?
If
Could
they
we-
are granted or aren't granted?
If they are not granted, could that area be subject to the tables and chairs licence being granted?
So if tables and chairs are granted, they would be within the red line area. If tables and chairs aren't granted, then the red line area would still stay the same, because we can't, without the applicant's permission, unilaterally pull back the line.
So if that's not included now, if the red line is actually the front of the premises, the inside of the premises.
What, to the building line? If it were, yeah. But it's not, though, is it?
It's
The
not, no.
application includes the pavement area as it stands.
So if the tables and chairs is not granted, then during the cafe hours, people could go out with a glass of wine and a fag. Is that right?
Correct, within the red line.
Could I mention something just to clarify? When we're discussing that pavement area, condition 11 I think is quite relevant and might help to clarify some of the questions.
Thank you. Sorry.
I think that was the point that I made in my original submission,
Yeah.
that in essence you can grant a premises licence which here would be granted irrespective of whether or not a highways permit is granted. So that red line would be there even though it's a public
Yes.
footpath. But I take the councillor's point. Condition 11 I think probably trumps
Assists. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so just to confirm, the applicant is happy for no drinks to be taken outside within that little red line area after 6 o'clock. Thank you. Right, number 11, does anybody have any comments on that? So again, customers need to be seated if they do get tables and chairs in the front forecourt area. And then it shall close to customers at 6 p.m. and then until 8 a.m. the following day, and all tables and chairs are to be removed from the highway.
Just a practical consideration, we can see the plan of the premises, it's where the
Where they're gonna
tables
put
and
them.
chairs are going to go.
Will you be able to store the tables and chairs inside after 6 p.m? Or where are you going to put them?
That's I wanted to add in here. We might end up folding them and not using them outside, but folding outside because of the smaller space.
So
And then-
render unusable.
Yes, we leave them unusable, yeah.
So are you happy for the words removed or rendered unusable?
No, I
for
think
practical
removed.
reasons?
It's not wide enough for tables and
Okay.
chairs.
Okay. So it's up to councillors to take a view on
I
that.
think it's misleading actually to have the word forecourt
I
in any of this, because there
Yeah.
isn't any forecourt. It is just front of the shop pavement. So
Yeah, I think
that's
from a-
misleading.
Yeah, I
feel.
think I understand your point, but I think from a highways perspective, if it's highway or not, even if it looks like a forecourt, i.e. it's not the normal kind of footway, it can still be highway if there's been 20-year use. So from a highways perspective, it won't make any difference. But I understand what you're saying about forecourt versus pavement. I understand, yeah.
And just to add, this is a really busy stretch because lots of people cut. I mean, I walk it every day. It's the way to cut through. And you've got the police station directly opposite. So a lot of people go across the Earls Court Road and down there. So anything out on the pavement will, obstruct people with prams, wheelchairs. It's just not wide enough because
Yeah.
you've also got the Santander bikes
Yeah.
directly outside.
So obviously, when you put in your pavement licence application, then you will need to object to that. Okay. Number 12, after 8 p.m, the sale and supply of alcohol for consumption on the premises shall be ancillary to a table meal, so that will tie in with the supper evenings. So everybody's happy with that? Number 13, the external doors of the premises shall be kept closed except for immediate access and egress from 10 p.m. until the premises closes. Does anybody have any comments on that?
I think it should be 6 p.m.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think also Zara said for her dinner parties that the doors and windows would be closed. So that could be from the hour of, 6 p.m. when the cafe closes.
So are you happy with 6 p.m? Thank you, that's helpful. Number 14, this is just having a telephone number displayed so that anybody can make complaints or address them with you. Is everybody happy with that? Sorry, applicant.
I'm not happy that it's mentioning that it should be visible. I'm going to have my number in my website. And if anyone wants to reach us, they can find the number on the website. But I think being visible in a cafe is...
I think we do like to have a telephone number that is displayed in case there are any problems, because people wouldn't necessarily be able to get to the website. Lindsay?
Well, that's true. I mean, some elderly people don't necessarily, or some people don't have access to websites, so somebody might just go by and just need a telephone number. I mean, obviously it's not your personal number, I presume. It'd just be a number for the premises. So, are you okay with that? Thank you. 15, and this is this kind of complements the earlier one. Substantial food should be available at all times. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you. Right, the following ones are just ones I've added based on the condition, the objections that were raised. I've added in refuse and deliveries to complement the rubbish ones. Is everybody happy with 16 and 17?
I think we'd ask the committee when they retire to consider the timings. The timings, obviously, you've heard evidence that very noisy, very late at night, 10:30, is very intrusive.
Can I just ask the applicant, are you going to be using a private collector or are you going to be using the council to collect your rubbish?
We go with the council collecting rubbish.
Can I ask a question on that? Is there a time of day that you, as residents, would prefer rubbish to be collected?
Late at night is better than early in the morning.
Late at night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, noted. All right, so moving on to number 18. So this is a standard condition we put on licences, just have residents meeting, so residents can meet with the premises licence holder just to discuss any issues. Can I have any comments on that, please? The applicant, are you happy with that?
I think that's fine, but if I could emphasise how important it is in view of the history.
Ms. Sarah, are you happy with that? Number 18. You put your mic on as well if you want to speak.
I wanted to mention, I'm happy to have meeting, but I don't like it to be a condition of the license. I'm happy to have the meetings whenever it's necessary due to the size of the property that I have. It's a very small size.
But we often make this a condition when in granting license. It's quite common that the management of the premises would have to meet with residents, I don't know, twice a year, whatever. It's quite a common condition.
I think it will address any concerns. It's another way for the residents to relay any concerns to you, and it keeps the lines of communication open. So obviously it's up to the committee, but obviously we take on board your concerns, but it's for the committee to make that decision. But if you've got any further comments on that one. Okay, thanks. Number 19, external areas to be kept clean, presentable and litter-free. Obviously, if there's any rubbish from the cafe, can you clear it up, kind of thing. You happy with that? Thank you. Number 20, provide smoking bins or ashtrays. I think you've mentioned that already. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just come back on the smoking? Could we actually designate an area? I'm thinking about to the left of the front door of the...
When you're facing the property.
Sorry, if you're facing it to the right.
To the right,
Okay.
yeah, away from our house.
What does the applicant
So where
think
it's got
about-
the entrance exit, fire exit, just to the right, there is a gap there. I think it would be better there than going the other way. Or the other alternative is opposite, is by the police station on the other side of the Earls Court Road, which is quite a way.
Yeah. Does the applicant have any comments on that? I think the committee can... Sorry.
Can I just comment as well? I mean, in terms of the permission for smoking, if there is no high-rise permit, there's no possibility of granting permission. But in practical terms, smoking bins, ashtrays and receptacles, this is a conservation area, so you can't just nail things to the wall without some kind of formal consent, etc. So, I mean, that condition again kind of highlights the difficulties with this particular location. So it would be very impossible without other authority to sort of comply with that, I would suggest.
Noted. Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you. Number 21, are you happy just to keep a daily incident log? Number 21. Thank you. Number 22, so this is when you have your supper clubs. Can you draw up a policy just to deal with dispersal of customers and perhaps put it on your website or? Thank you. And I think you said that you weren't going to have a delivery like an Uber Eats, so I don't know well, we can keep it in the unlikely event, but it's obviously up to the committee. But you've said that there won't be a delivery service. Now that's all the conditions that I've thought of. Nothing else has cropped up.
Could I just clarify? There have been various conditions bandied about, particularly in the Environmental Health Officer's representation, but also in the letter from the applicant or email from the applicant of the 3rd of March. Various, effectively they're amendments to the application, but various conditions there. Are those sort of on the table for the committee to consider as well?
So which ones are you referring to in particular?
So there's an email from the 3rd of March where the applicant sets out in some detail what they're proposing to do and how they're proposing to do it.
Yeah.
Talking about selling tickets and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think one thing we probably would do, sorry, that's another thing I just want to quickly address. You've also said that you're happy starting alcohol at 10 rather than 9 a.m. I think does anybody have any comments on the start time of alcohol?
I honestly think midday would be more normal. I don't think you need the number of people. I just think it's ridiculous to have it so much earlier than, say, the Abingdon or wherever.
The problem is that our policy is usually 10 o'clock. I completely agree with you, but it is actually 10, and that's the normal time that we will do the Abingdon and all of the ones around. So, yes.
Could I also add something on that? We've heard from the applicant that sales at that time of the morning of alcohol are going to be pretty minimal. So either you say there's no sales at all or there's one or two. And if it's really very minimal, then it doesn't really have the kind of impact that you would think of having the equivalent of a nightclub on your doorstep at 10 a.m.
No, I think it goes more to individuals' health rather than a public nuisance issue. But that's our general policy is 10 o'clock.
Okay, so that's something you can just go away and take on board. I think in terms of your other question, sorry.
Hi, Jennifer Ratner. I do feel that the letter that the applicant submitted on the 3rd of March is significant, and I am concerned that her representations about how she'd like to amend her application are not incorporated into the conditions because, you know, in that she represents that she'll have her door closed, that she will give the nuisance officer advance notice. So I do feel that she has offered to amend her application with these conditions and that they should be incorporated.
I think a lot of them have been addressed in the conditions. I mean, in the actual...
specifically, the number of occasions per
I'm going to put
annum.
that in the... Sorry, I have liaised with the licensing officers regarding whether or not the 52 occasions, ticketed, pre-booked events with the environmental health writing, you know, agreeing to them, that will form part of the main front part of the licence. So if the committee were minded to grant the alcohol sales, they'd obviously be considering the hours, and also they'd be considering the non-standard timings for up to 22:30 on sales, up to 52 times per calendar year, provided that such occasions are pre-booked ticketed events and notice of each occasion has been given in writing to Environmental Health 14 days beforehand, and Environmental Health have given their written consent to each occasion. So that would also be for the committee to consider. So yes, that has been incorporated into the front sheet of the licence.
Sorry, we're being picky here. I just question from a legal point of view that the application in relation to non-standard timings seems sort of fundamentally different to the application that was advertised, as I understand it. Obviously, it is a compromise, but I'm not sure quite where the non-standard timings come from the original application.
I think my understanding was it was to kind of tailor it because the applicant didn't enter into pre-act talks with licensing, and obviously the application was put out there and everybody thought it was going to be 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock every night, Monday to Sunday. So it rather than increasing the application, which isn't the case here, they've tailored it to kind of decrease the later night element to up to 52 times per year. So it's still within the ambit of the occasion, of the application. So as far as I'm concerned, it is perfectly legal. But obviously, it's better that if the committee are minded to grant this, it's better that it's done through non-standard timings because then all the conditions will apply rather than through TENS.
I think the applicant has changed the application quite a lot, but it is in response to what Mr. Mahathir has said, and I think that it's taken on board quite a lot of his concerns.
I don't have any other conditions to consider. Does anybody else have anything else to add condition-wise?
Can I just ask on TENS, because this was something that was discussed before, can you put conditions on the TENS, on timing and...
It's very limited. I think Paul might be able to jump in here. It's wider doing it this way than it is through TENS, but Paul might be able to fill the gaps in.
Certainly, thank you, Lindsay. TENS can only be conditioned providing there is a premises licence in effect within the area that the TEN is sought for, and it would also have to be done via police or noise objections. So essentially TENS can be conditioned, but there is a process that has to be followed, and it has to be for an area where a premises licence is in effect. And they also have to be conditions on the relevant premises licence in order for them to be attached to a TEN via an objection from noise or police.
So it's better to add all the conditions now onto the grant application rather than cut them back and then a TENS come along, which is then you want those kind of conditions, but you'd be limited to what was on the actual licence. So I think Mr Mahaffey's kind of touched on that somewhere in one of his representations.
And sorry, just to clarify, so if there's up to 52, can you then apply for TENS on top of that?
Yes, you can, but obviously it is for the environmental health or police to object to those TENS.
So, Mr Fallon, do you have anything else you would like to add?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay. And governance officers, anything to add? Okay, thank you. So we have reached the end of the meeting. The committee now has all the information needed and we will retire to make our decision in private session. We will not announce the decision today. Instead, the hearing on this application will be... This is not
It will be distributed within
Yeah, it will
5
be
working days.
Basically, the summary will be distributed to all the parties within 5 working days of today's hearing, and then a full decision will follow as soon